Muchas gracias a ti, Marcelo, por
Very much want to thank you for your presentation.
la importancia de la dimensión social,
Due to the importance
pero
of
además
social
de la
dimension
dimensión
and
concreta
in
de
the
la-
concrete dimension
de la
also of
integración.
integration is very
En
important
estos
too.
momentos podemos
Now
abrir
we can
un
open
derecho de palabra para que ustedes
the
puedan hacer
floor so
preguntas
that you
o
can ask
comentarios
questions or make comments
a Marcelo,
to Marcelo's
así que está
presentation.
abierto
So
la
now
posibilidad de que ustedes intervengan.
the floor is open for the audience to intervene.
Lev de Venezuela.
Venezuela,
Eh,
would like to make a comment, say something? Please give him the mic. I want to make a comment, basically, he says. We talked about inequalities. We have to recall every inequality is also actually inequalities which is unfair. We have seen already the diversities of problems of inequalities that we have in the UNESCO countries, and I think the bloc should advance in the creation, actually, so they can identify this type of inequalities that we have. We need to have a common methodology so that so people can measure the disparities, and we can advance in policies that should be adapted to the specificities, political and economic singularities of each one of the countries, of course, respecting the principles of sovereignty and self-determination of each country, but always as a bloc. We need union, respecting diversity amidst diversity. This is the comment he wanted to make. Felix, from the network of National Health Institutes, has the floor now. Yes, I was quiet all the time, and I didn't respond to Jaime's or Roberto's pokes because they were provoking me. I think that Marcelo opens to a new possibility, a very wonderful possibility of intervening, and I didn't want to miss out on this wonderful opportunity, basically because of the broad vision, honest vision that Marcelo brought to the meeting, of a Mercosur vision that we need, because the vision that we have in Mercosur is free trade agreements only. Or even, I was going to ask you about the specific situation of Paraguay in terms of social policies, more advanced social policies. But no, I just want to make a comment better linked to, I wouldn't say to the intersectoriality, a wonderful sentence that you mentioned about the actually to pertaining or belonging to a common continent with a goal of unity, regional unity, which is a political, ideological goal of all of us, is not just a conjunctural, opportunistic objective. It goes beyond that idea. I'm talking about UNESCO and Mercosur just as a possible agent for this unity. In the health, are going to comment that the difference between social determinants and determination, I believe this much more concrete that what Jaime said as what has been brought by Roberto. Jaime has made epistemological criticisms in the 70s that has a name and surname, which is social determination, which is a social class. What happens as social class generally is an abstract category, especially when it's interpreted as of its origins. Historic origins. Today, capitalism has changed completely, especially after the 80s and 90s, where there are other factors that come to play in terms of reproduction of value, especially the financial factor, the information, knowledge, power has changed. But there are several authors that are making efforts of operationalizing the social classes in what is the context of contemporary capitalism that are exactly social classes, operational social classes with secondary data available, especially all linked to the occupational relationship, to the link of the family to the labor market, not just as domination imposed by capital, but domination of information. There are 15, 16, 20, depending on the authors. There are many or proxies or categories of social classes that somehow reflect the insertion of families in the production mode, including the power systems. My point is, for us, this category of social class is social determination of health, because it's social determination of the well-being that defines and determines all the others are mediators, brokers, actually is housing, transportation, wages. Those are they just broker social class and are also they are intermediary factors. The social problematic senso lato, including health, includes well-being, includes development and happiness in jobs, education, power, or its community organization is directly linked to its social insertion. On the other hand, too, territorial location of social classes is very well defined. There is no mosaic of social classes. Every social class lives in a microspace clearly defined, homogeneous depending on the possibility that we have of locating this space. Or even I go actually to a low-income housing who lives in the center, actually in the low-income housing, has a different social insertion than those are in the periphery. Without mentioning, of course, the other neighborhoods. Always I said that Fabricio is very different. Actually, Carrasco, Pocitos, that are affluent neighborhoods in Montevideo. But let's have empirical instruments that are completely different from the others in health and also in other factors, social factors too. How do you see the possibility of using the social class and territory categories as an integrator, concrete integrator of all these areas of works that are dispersed or branches, as you say, transportation, housing, education, sports, whatever, leisure? How do you see the possibility of developing in the long term a map or social cartography of the area of Mercosur? So when identifying different territories hegemonically, space of production or social reproduction will allow to develop integrated public policies, not to eliminate dengue or eliminate actually high blood pressure, but in fact concretely should aim at resolving the consequence of the determination of social classes on their happiness. And this obviously the organization, the community as a single element, a fundamental element to try to change this reality. Thank you, Felix, for recalling us these old class and territory proxies or categories and linking them with the issue of inequality in social policies. Any other comments to return the floor to the speaker? Yes, Peru. I have several things I would like to voice. I don't want to be too radical, I would say, in my comments. I would have wanted in reality to recall this whole history of the streams of thought that in the last 20 or 30 years have been modifying our activities activists of the public health sector, of those of us who work in the public health sector, those who, what we thought about 30 years ago, more or less, I have been working for 30 years in this area, until today, how things have evolved in time. This change that has taken place, in reality, not only is within us, but it has taken place also in the people that we represent. Not only we changed ourselves, we also change the social organization in the country or in the different countries. We see a change in the position of people. So these social organizations, let's say, to give you an example, let's say 2 decades ago only, we proudly said that we have 60,000 promoters in Peru. Today, also we are 30,000 according to the latest polls. There's a change in the way how we as citizens we are intervening in this complex situation as described by our morning speakers. I want to thank the organizer for providing us with wonderful speakers, because I'm taking actually express master's course here. And I do recall that we have always had the value, this Western world that we represent, we have always had the value that contributed to the big social change that was developed, the social shift that was developed in the socialist world that has changed. It contributed, as I said, because those people thought, they used to think that this world that we do represent has actually important values. And these values are great. Solidarity, support to others. These values actually are very important. Can we have a society, he asks, a social capitalism perhaps, where people should help out each other, and each person should contribute to the well-being of the other people. This tells me that everything that we have heard today is definitely true, up to a certain extent, but the fact of having an academic assertion, a very well academic construct, doesn't meet yet the possibility of being able to turn this into something real. It is very hard to take science into practice. Mankind has failed in this aspect. How can we make the big machines make them produce actually the goods that they produced? How can we make this social organization that we are aspiring to will produce such changes in the population that people will learn to use their rights? They have to acknowledge, they have to be used, because they have to be acknowledged and used at the same time. There are situations, for example, with the rights of women. We have in the countries legislation and legal rules and norms on the rights of the women, but actually the violence against women is still rising. So these mechanisms are not well used, or these regulations are not yet in place, or not well implemented. I would like to add, if we want to do something in order to contribute from the social determinant focus, that I think that which is a wonderful idea, an interesting idea. Social determinants, I think it's great. I think we're going to go to the roots, to the root cause of the problem, but you want to use this focus. There are 2 questions that we have to respond to ourselves. The first question is, how can we establish a directionality actually for all of us, if all the countries are going to address the social determinants, from which perspective the social determining factors are going to be addressed by all?
From the perspective, address it from the perspective of a government that's going to carry out measures so to certain corporations can have other position, or we're going to support this from a perspective that we're going to support the citizenship and governance, not only from the central government, but from the regional governments. This was my question this morning, but the policies that we're going to do regarding this are going to be macro policies at a regional level, or we're going to have policies at a basic level, municipalities. Are you able to understand me? This methodology has to be built. Another topic that we should touch: what's the intensity of the change that we're proposing? One is the focus or the position, the other the intensity. Could be different. We can say, well, from now on, you're not going to produce, or we do not sell tobacco, for example. And I'm exaggerating nevertheless, but something very radical. Or we're going to have an intensity and time within a long-term positioning. These measures that should be proposed from the government, because I can't imagine that this can be proposed by the governments of health. This should be with the support of each president of a country. Because here we're talking about social determinants, and we're talking about the social determinants. It's a multi-sectorial point of view. It's should not carried out from ministries of health or from the allied organizations or partners organizations. It should be a policy from the states. In total, as states, to implement this. All of these questions that are more methodological questions should be asked. We cannot end in just the discourse. How are we going to deal with this interesting topic? And in the future, it's going to be worthwhile to have a second victory that could be done by a generation. We're going to pass the floor now to Marcelo to close, and after that, Mariana is going to make some final comments. The first question, the social cartography that was mentioned by a friend of Argentina, I think it's necessary. One of the things that I really didn't touch in depth because I didn't have time, the objective of the book is to determine the thematic areas and the problems that the states of Mercosur are facing. And this book was a starting point to the debate and criticism of these problems. And this cross issues is family as center of this attention. This way of seeing the social policies, apart from gender, territory, etc. We're talking about the same thing. As a community, as a family, as a center and focus of attention. This is included, and I would like to invite you that in the book it shows what. I gave.
Yo te doy la mía.
I'll give you mine.
Es todo mío, ¿no? Lo que pasa es que no tenía pocos libros y dije, bueno,
I have few books, and there's at least one per country
para hacerlo democrático. Bueno,
to be more democratic.
y además paso el aviso ya.
And it's available in the site, the Isags Mercosur. It's in PDF in Spanish or Portuguese. So it's pertinent the proposal, and I think that we have a lot to interchange regarding the focusing on this, the intensity and methodology of work at the regional level. It's in an explored territory. We didn't have walked in it. We have examples in all the regional blocks how this was carried out. Open coordination of Europe, etc. We have in Mercosur, we are starting to implement some projects of assessment and implementation. So this point that you talked about, how to participate on local levels, citizens, how the different levels of government participate in this concrete policy. This is a territory that nobody has touched yet. I think it's interesting to see this and the intensity of how the approach is done. I close here. Mariana is the one who's going to close. From my point of view, I would like to thank you, and I'm available for any consultations, comments, and I'll invite you to visit the site of the Social Institute to know a little bit more where we're working and where we generate all this crazy madness.
Well, as we are being speaking on inequities and differences and integration, I always speak in English so that our folks from Guyana and Suriname don't need to use the translation and the others have to make a little bit of effort, right? Because we have been talking in Spanish and Portuguese all day long. So this is part of the integration. And those are the barriers we have to cross to integrate. So tomorrow, well, first of all, thank Marcelo so much in the presence of the Social Institute of Mercosur. I think this is one of the important things that we have been trying to do from our place at Isags, right? Trying to connect other institutions that we believe and understand that have important connection with the development of the actions that we have been planning, at least planning, not doing yet, but thinking about doing. Isags is really new, but we have been trying, and this is another effort, right? We have here, if I'm not mistaken, 3, and tomorrow we will have 4 representatives from the Social Development Council of UNASUR, right? We wish we could have all of them, but not all the countries could be present. This is the first step to have all of us together working as one, right? Because we have lots of things in common, as we could see today. Everything we saw today, as Dr. Alexander from Peru told us, was kind of a small master degree, yeah? I know that a lot of things were very profound, and we will sleep on that. And tomorrow we will have much more to talk. Tomorrow, in the first part in the morning, we will know each other better. We will listen a little bit about what has the Council of Social Development working on. I don't know if it's going to be Peru. Eva is going to present to us what they have been doing, and we're going to listen from Colombia and Venezuela, which are the coordinators of the Social Determinants in Health Working Group of the Health Council. And so we will know each other a little bit more and see where can we work together, and then we will settle down for a look at the documents that have been being discussed in the world and in our countries. Helsinki, the World Health Assembly, and as Dr. Paulo Bu said, what we're going to face for the next 3 years, starting September this year, right? Discussing the Sustainable Development Goals. So, to end this and thanking you very much. I know everybody's really tired. All of you have traveled, and I really think, I know this day was a very heavy day with a lot of contents, but I believe this will help us in our discussions for the next days. I will ask Otto to distribute, please, digital copy of the book that we have. I understand many of you already have a copy, but it's always nice. It's small, it's a CD, so you can take it. This is the book that Isags published last year. It will come in English next month in June. Okay, it will be available on our website. Still in English, in Spanish. We will receive in Spanish, but it will be the same way to download it in English. We have the 12 health systems. The countries wrote their own view of their own systems. This is the first time. And we have 2 chapters, one that analyzes and systematizes some information, and the second one, and the last one, sorry, that talks a little bit about integration and cooperation in South America on the UNOSUR perspective. So thank you so much. The van will be waiting for you. La van está abajo esperando por ustedes. Los llevará directamente al hotel. So see you tomorrow. Rest. Descansen bien y mañana reempezamos. Muchas gracias.